Welcome to Buckets Live. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We're back. We are so back. I'm thrilled to be back with you for another season here at the Action Network and on the Buckets podcast, coming to you live from the Tommy John's home studio. Wearing my Tommy John's. I feel good. I had a great night betting the NBA. It's back. I'm so glad it's back. The betting is back. We're going to tonight on tonight's show, we're going to talk about the Boston Celtics and the Boston 3 party as they absolutely went ham on the New York Knickerbockers and shut up the 700 people who are Knicks fans that work with me at the Action Network. We're going to talk about the Minnesota Timberwolves and just inability to hang on to the ball. Anthony Davis being an absolute monster, and about some of the trends that we saw in tonight's games. We're going to hit on those reactions. Plus, we'll have best bets for you later on the huge Wednesday night slate, as that's like when the real season starts, is when the league pass sickos are able to flip between games, and we'll have all these options. We got lots of stuff to bet on. Excited to be with you. Like I said, I'm Matt Moore, senior NBA writer for the Action Network. I'm joined by Michael Fiddle. You can catch him on Twitter at FiddlePicks. He's absolutely phenomenal. Fiddle's Picks. Sorry, Fiddle's Picks. With is it Fiddles? I'm sorry. No, it's Fiddle Picks. Yes.
It's Fiddle's Picks because I don't know why, but the Fiddle Picks was taken, and I reached out to the person, but they haven't tweeted in 10 years, and
I
for some
thought
reason it
Fiddles.
won't be my account.
I thought Fiddle's Picks was taken, and so you were stuck with Fiddle Picks. I got it twisted in my head. Fiddle had a very good night betting the NBA. We'll get to his thoughts on tonight's games. Join me also, Brian Fonseca, generational hater, Miami Heat sympathizer, and a man whose night didn't go as well as he would have liked. But it's the first night, buddy. It's the first night. We're gonna pick it up with these night two. He's got a great play on a prop that I'm all the way in on. Later on, we're going to do our nightly parlay as well. We'll get that to you and more. Let's go ahead and get rolling here. Let me know what you think about the night's games and what your favorite play is for tomorrow night. Put it in the chat segment here at youtube.com/the Action Network. If you're listening on the podcast, pop on over to youtube.com/the Action Network. Give us a like and subscribe and check out the show. All right, let's start here. Let's start with Minnesota and the Lakers. So JJ Redick debuts, Bronny James plays, all smiles in Los Angeles as the Lakers get the win versus the Wolves on opening night. No big, great coming out party for Anthony Edwards as the new face of the league. Lakers get the win 110-103. Bronny James played 0 points, 1 rebound, 0 of 2. We can move on now. We can move on. Those that bet the under on him have cashed. Anthony Davis did not go scoreless. He had 36 points in this one, 16 boards. Davis played like a big man versus the best interior defender in the NBA. It was a really impressive game. I'll have more to say on that later. Anthony Edwards, 27 points on 10 of 25 shooting. The hope was that Ant would like make a leap in efficiency this season. Didn't happen, at least not in this first game versus the Lakers. The biggest problem in this game was turnovers for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They got outscored 19-6 in points off turnovers. That was a huge problem for the Wolves last year. It's a huge problem for them this year. It continues to be an issue. But Fiddle, I want to know this from you. When you look at this market, I love the under in this game. Opens 225. It moved to 219.5 over the weekend, and I was like, oh man, am I not going to be able to give this out again because it's steamed too much? I grabbed it at 225. And then it came back up to 222.5, and I was like, okay, I can give it out again. And I was glad. Late steam is obviously worrisome. That's usually sharp action when it's late in the day like this. But under was really never in doubt. Really fascinating game. The side didn't really move at all. It moved a little bit got out to Wolves -2.5, came back to Wolves -1. Not surprising given it's the Lakers on opening night. What'd you think about the market, and what'd you see from the game?
Thought it was a clear Lakers were the sharp side coming into this game, and definitely was a spot to look towards the under. It was a situational spot where I think you even talked about it. Those Western Conference teams on opening nights generally tend towards overs, while the Eastern Conference goes towards overs. That's exactly what we saw in night one. Market sides go 4-0, sides and totals between the two games. So these things are important to be aware of, where these lines are moving. Where was the open and where's the close, and what's the ultimate direction of that movement? For the Lakers versus Wolves total, Matt, when you saw it come in at 219, like, there has to be some people in that who had that 225 from earlier on who are taking some buyback action as well. So when you see 6 points of movement, yeah, if you got an early ticket, you have to play some of it back. Now, that's the situation that I'm going into on Rockets, Charlotte Hornets tomorrow night, having under 235.5, and now playing back over 229.5. So if we see that market pop back up, some of it is sharp action that's coming in late. Some of it's just buyback, insurance points, and setting up these middles too.
Yeah, I mean, I think look, middles. Fiddle's middles are legendary, and also something that terrify me because I'm just always like, how do you possibly manage how scary those middles in the NBA can be? Fonseca, let's go to the basketball side. Davis, an absolute monster in this one. The whole problem with Anthony Davis is he'll have games like this and then he'll follow it up with disappointing performances. But one of my criticisms has always been like he will beast out versus teams where he has an advantage and then vanish a little bit. But this was the opposite. This is Rudy Gobert, and he absolutely beasted on him. If Davis finally, 3 years too late, actually becomes the best player on the Lakers and like a potential MVP candidate, that's going to change the direction. It's one game, right? Versus a Wolves team definitely trying to figure some stuff out. But I could not have been more impressed with how Anthony Davis played tonight.
The whole entire point of Anthony Davis being in LA is to help LeBron James age gracefully and become that guy eventually. And we, to your point, would have thought that it would have happened by now. But I mean, if we're going to see more games like tonight, this is a night where Rudy Gobert's contract extension gets agreed upon and reported like 20 minutes before tip off. And then Rui Hachimura dunks on him and blocks him at the rim like immediately as the game starts. And you were like, all right, it's not going to be a great night for Rudy Gobert, it seems. And Anthony Davis was also like, he was scoring, he was talking shit, he was getting in Ant's face, he was getting in Rudy's face. He had 36, 16, and 4. And he really put this team on his back, even as the game progressed. And it got a little tight there. Like there was a point where Minnesota damn near came all the way back, and the Lakers were able to finish strong in a game that LeBron James didn't have to do a ton of heavy lifting. Obviously, he was impactful. He was out there. And notably, a JJ Redick team shot 5 of 30 from three. They are getting some threes, but not, not to the degree at which you would think. I do think they're going to space a little bit more as the season progresses. It's the first game for everybody. There are a lot of kinks to work out on the other side of this and the Minnesota side of this that we can get into with Julius Randle in particular and that fit, which looked very clunky to start. But, in this game overall, like I get the sense that the Lakers are going to be a little bit more balanced, especially if Anthony Davis can give you this type of performance from a superstar standpoint, just out the gate like this.
8-man rotation essentially for the Wolves, 9 if you count Joe Ingles. They lost this game because they didn't play Josh Minott. Just want to go ahead and get that out ahead of that. Is that if they played Josh Minott, they would have won this game outright. Wolves money line would have gotten home for me. I would have swept the board. Like I said, I had under in this game. Love the under. To me, it looked like a game where we are going to see some disjointedness on the Wolves side of things, but still some pretty good defense. Pace was slower, so that made a lot of sense in this game. The turnovers continue to be an issue, but also I will say this: look, just because they were bad turnovers last year and tonight doesn't mean the Wolves will be bad on this. I'm not going to overreact to this. I'm not going to go crazy. You should never react to one NBA game. It's really funny because it's like you shouldn't react to week 1 in the NFL, and you shouldn't react to week like 30 in the NBA. Like it's just one game. You just can't overreact to these things. We have to get a bigger sample size and see the whole course of the season. Also, I think some of the miscommunication. Now, look, Randall stuck out like a sore thumb. Numbers were fine, 16 points, 9 boards, 5 of 10 from the field. But there were multiple times when the Lakers were just beating him to the ball on rebounds on the offensive side. Like they were just beating him to offensive rebounds. That can't happen. That's not part of the Wolves formula. Like part of their strength was you were never going to get a rebound with Gobert and Cat. You just weren't going to get one. Cat's not even a great rebounder, but the size, Randall can't bring that kind of effort. That's not going to work. So I hopefully they can figure something out. Don't like the Randall and Reed combo. That's also pretty messy. I continue to hope that the Wolves will actually move Randall, keep DiVincenzo, and add some depth. But we'll see what happens from there. I think the biggest takeaway for me is, the 3-point thing I think is interesting. Wolves got at 41. They just shot 32% on them. And they still had an 8 3-point lead on 8 3-pointer lead on the Lakers.
Almost 100% too.
Do what?
Almost double the percentage too. In terms of
Lakers shot, like Brian said, Lakers shot 5 of 30. That's bad. It's not great. And I don't know. Look, I don't know how much better that's going to be. I do think that maybe the Lakers I think the Lakers model is probably going to be a little bit closer to the 2021. I don't think they're as good as that team, but be big, be physical, play physical defense, try and average out the math game a little bit. That's probably a better formula for them. But who knows? Maybe they'll find somebody to give them a little bit of a boost offensively. D'Angelo Russell, 4 of 12 from the field, 1 of 7, and the worst haircut ever known to man. Fonseca, thoughts on that haircut?
I could not stop staring at D'Angelo Russell. I could not stop. Honestly, yes.
I kind of liked it, guys.
Oh, you liked it?
You talking about Joe Burrow, D'Angelo Russell out there?
Yeah, Joe Burrow. That's right. That's right.
Like, I mean, listen, clearly the dude, I mean, I remember when he was with the Nets, he was like in all these different, you know, stylist sort of things. I'm not that type of dude. I mean, you know, look at me. I'm not wearing like, you know, Da Vinci and all this shit. But like, listen, like people do what they do. I mean, it
The
is.
pronunciation of Da Vinci right there just made the line even that much better.
That's great.
That was on purpose.
Anthony Davis, 26-1 currently in the market to win DPOY, 75-1 to win MVP. I'm not saying I'm betting it. I would never do such a thing after one night's games. But I checked the line. In the early game, the Boston Celtics took on the New York Knicks. A lot of excitement for this one. Banner 18 night, new look Knicks, cat, right? And this is the team that the Knicks were built for. We added Mikal Bridges. We're going to switch everything. We had Karl Anthony Towns. We've got a 5-out weapon for you now, Celtics. Now we've got and it was an absolute mollywop, destruction, annihilation. It was Xerxes raining down arrows from the sky on the poor Spartans, who just sat there with their wooden shields and got obliterated. As all of my Knicks colleagues can just maybe take it down a notch. Maybe it's gonna take a little while to figure out how to play with this group. The commentary during the game for Kevin Harlan was, hey, you know, look, nobody's beating the Celtics if they're gonna shoot like this. But my problem, Brian, was the Knicks were allowing all of these threes. These were the big key here. There's this debate in analytics about is it percentage or is it just the 3-pointers that you allow? Is the 3-point percentage entirely luck? And the best way, you can't really quantify it because it's an ephemeral thing. The key is how many in rhythm looks are you giving? And the Knicks gave them in rhythm look after in rhythm. A pull-up jumper from Tatum from certain spots on the floor after certain dribble moves is an in rhythm shot. Derek White spotting up as an in rhythm shot. The Knicks defense was an abomination. The game plan execution was like, I'm personally offended and humiliated for you. That's how bad that was. Tibbs was pissed. I couldn't believe they gave up that many threes and they got that worked on defense. I don't care that it's game 1, Brian. That was a miserable performance from the Knicks defense.
It's going to take time to gel. We just talked about how the Lakers are 5 of 30 from 3. The Celtics shot 61 threes in this game, and they made 29 of them. And honestly, they made a much higher percentage, it felt like, than the 48 that they wound up with. For whatever reason, they couldn't hit a 3 in the last 6 minutes of the game as they were chasing this record that they almost got, that they tied for 3-pointers in the game as a team. But it was ridiculous. It's like, I think there's something to be said for, and there were fans complaining that, you know, what the Celtics are doing is boring, which is why I asked in the Slack, like, do you guys like watching this team? Because I saw a lot of debate on the timeline, so to speak, about like, hey, is this boring or whatever? And, you know, concerns about the future of basketball. And the way I look at it for this particular instance, the Knicks were just giving up a lot of these open threes. Like, they were failing to rotate over and over again. They couldn't get out to the corner, where the Celtics always had somebody there because they play a 5-out offense, because they're so good at spacing. They were letting guys dribble into shots like Jason Tatum, as you mentioned. And honestly, it wasn't like overly complicated offensively at times. It was just kind of like swing, we have an open 3, and the Knicks were just late to rotate. And I was also worried on the Knicks' behalf when the first person I saw come off the bench. Now, this is understandable in terms of like basketball scheming and things of that nature, but Jericho Sims was effectively their 6th man in terms of he was the first guy to come off the bench. And that is a far cry from the depth that carried the Knicks through last season to the team that everybody fell in love with. It's just a very different thing. And Jericho Sims, Knicks fans are kind of out on him, but look, he's in the last year of his contract. He's going to get an opportunity to prove whether or not he's a long-term, or I guess short-term rotation piece, and gets a Deuce McBride style contract. Deuce McBride was also very good tonight. But the thing is, in looking at that bench, I mean, Campaign played a lot. Deuce McBride was the only one who really was like great coming off that. And I was on the Jalen Brunson under, one of the only things I got right today. And Jalen Brunson fell under because one, it's a tough matchup, and two, this game got really away from them. So I'm not hitting the panic button after just one game, but this idea that Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby were just going to stop Jason Tatum, Jalen Brown, everybody else, on this team is just pretty misguided at this point, especially since the Knicks are going to be weak on the interior for at least a couple months.
I like how you're like, I was seeing lots of things on the timeline about do you like watching this Boston Celtics team play? And I was like, were you looking at your own timeline? Is that what was happening? It's like the hot dog meme.
No,
We're all trying to find the guy who did this.
No, for real. This is.
I'm just kidding. I know. I'm just messing with you. I will say I do like what I've grown to really appreciate watching the Celtics. They move the ball. They're unselfish. They generate rhythm threes. Like a lot of it's like, look, if you watch the 2000, I made this comparison in our Slack. If you watch the 2008 Hornets, it was like CP3 running pick and roll with Tyson Chandler. Defense helps over. CP3 finds David West for a mid-range jumper. It's the same thing. It's just that David West is sitting on the three-point line. It's the same thing. It's not like this isn't like they're not breaking anything here. Just because they take a lot of pull-up jumpers because they have the guys to do it doesn't mean that this is some sort of this is not Rockets ball. It's not Morey ball. It's different. It's Missoula ball. And whatever questions I have about Joe Missoula, I cannot deny the results at this point. It's working. Winning 64 games, having the fourth best SRS in history, winning the NBA title, and then tying the record for most threes in a game versus your division rival on banner night. Celtics fans have too much happiness, and I'm with you on that. Anyone that hates the Celtics, I'm just saying like it's a little bit too much on that. Fiddle in this game, over never in doubt because of the shooting. I love the over in the spot. I had trends on Eastern Conference games and season openers being great for the over. Love this from a 3-point perspective. We got that. Like Knicks even shot pretty well. They just didn't shoot the lights out like the Celtics did. Over was an easy one. Celtics was even easier. Home Eastern Conference favorites in the season opener continue to be a smash spot. Looking for those on Wednesday and Thursday night. What was your read on the market and how this one turned out?
Yeah, clear over spot, and it turned out phenomenally. Like we talk about not overreacting towards one game. Well, we need to for the Boston Celtics because put them in the Minnesota Vikings situation where after just one game, we need to adjust their power rankings. We need to even say the best team in the NBA is better than we thought they were. And especially when it comes to betting totals, like it is going to be nuclear scenarios towards the over. I think we get really lucky with them not getting the record and them going cold at the end and then having it kind of land where it did. That is a gift for the next few games and being able to get it. I wrote down that the Boston Celtics crossed the 50-point threshold on a three-pointer with 8:03 left in the second quarter to have 52 points. Now, if you compare what the Boston Celtics team total so relative to where this game was priced, not just what's like an average score, relative to what the Boston Celtics were priced in this game, by the time they scored 50 points, they were already 15 points north of their team total expectation through 16 minutes of the game. This is a nuclear explosion that's happening. They have gone from shooting unlimited threes to infinite threes. And if that's going to continue, we need to keep playing over. So I think I saw you tweet out something, Matt, like they get the Wizards on Thursday. They're either going to win by 80 or they're going to lose. We should immediately start going to look over to those. I know this is a best bets for Wednesday, but we're doing a live show. Like, look at the overs that haven't moved for Thursday's Wizards game already. There's a 233.5 out there. That's an absolute must play because not only is it the way the Boston Celtics are playing, they forced the Knicks to play their style. Look how many threes that the Knicks put up in the first half. Look how fast that pace was moving. So the Knicks didn't have the shooting to keep up. But if the game is going to look like that, literally sign me up for every single over until there's a vast price adjustment in the market where this should be north of 240 in damn near every Celtics game.
Man, that's an interesting idea because part of it is too, like I like some of the under early plays. I've got a lot of plays on the under tomorrow because I'm of the understanding that we're going to see a little bit tougher officiating. The Celtics don't need the officials though. Like it's not dependent. Like they don't generate free throws. They just
They generate offensive rebounds, Matt, which then goes to a 14-second shot clock, because when you shoot the long ball, it's going to cause more long rebounds. That's like a big part of what Missoula is doing, right? Hey, if we shoot so many threes, we're winning the math game. We're setting ourselves up for more offensive rebounds. And on a defensive sense, we can get our half-court defense more set. So it creates more of these offensive rebounding opportunities where, hey, there's not going to be a running up and down the court. There's going to be another three that's shot in the next 14 seconds. So another recipe for just overs all over these Celtics games.
All right. Good discussion on the first night's opening games. If you're watching on youtube.com/the Action Network, give us a like right now. I want more likes. I want more likes. Give me the likes I deserve for doing this live show. Buckets is great content. Make sure to subscribe to the Action Network as well, but I want those likes smashed immediately. Up next, we're going to do best bets for the Wednesday slate in the NBA. But first, I need to let you know, we mentioned at the top of the show that we're coming to you from our great Tommy John home studios, and that's because great games start with great underwear, and Tommy John makes the greatest. So I'm a boxers guy. They sent me some boxer briefs, and I was like, oh, come on, man. Come on now. I haven't worn anything like this in years. So I was like, I'm going to try them on because they send us money. And so I tried, and I was like, oh my God. And then there's the pajama pants, and they're like this. They're the black and gray camo, which I'm going to be really honest with you, I always associate with Bubba Ray Dudley from ECW. Like, that's what I'm always going to think of. But they were absolutely phenomenal. They were so comfortable. Like, I've been nagging my wife, hey, we got to do laundry because I need those pants back. The t-shirt's absolutely amazing. Remember, when you're truly comfortable, you do everything better, and that includes betting. So if you love the Buckets podcast and you love this crew, you're going to love Tommy John. Get 25% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/buckets. That's 25% off at TommyJohn.com/buckets. All right, it's time. Let's get some best bets for this Wednesday slate. I cannot be more excited. Like, I cannot wait. Tomorrow night, heading down to the basement, gonna have myself an ice cold root beer. I've got 3 TVs down there. I'm putting on nothing but sicko games. You could keep your ESPNs. No, sir. I want only sicko games in my basement. We're gonna run through the best bets. I am doing fewer best bets this season on the show. I am gonna have one tonight because it's like our first full night, so I gotta do one. But we're gonna go around the horn. Brian Fonseca, what's your best bet for the Wednesday slate?
We're gonna go with Bam Adebayo to make 1 3-point shot. Just over half a three, Bam.
I'm gonna come back to that, but we'll talk about that in a second. There's actually another bet I wish we could make. Michael Fiddle, give me your best bets for the Wednesday slate. You're muted.
Sorry about that. My dog was barking. I am on the Cleveland Cavaliers -6 against the spread against the Raptors, and I'm going to be on the over for the Suns and the Clippers. You can find that below 224. It's a good play. There's a 223.5. I would still play a 224, but I would stop above that.
Okay, I have several best bets in the Action Network app, and I'm gonna have a full write-up on my bets that you're gonna be able to find on Wednesday morning, so you can check those out in the app for the full one. The one I'm gonna give out on the show, though, is under 222 Warriors and Blazers. We'll get to our parlay a little bit later on. Brian, give me the cap on Bam Adebayo over 0.53s. When you're like, to make one, I was like, it really would be great if we could parlay over 0.5, under 1.5 to do just exactly 1-3. It's like Zach Lowe, 1 beer. Bam Adebayo, 1-3. Give me the handicap on Bam over 0.5 3-pointers made.
No, it's funny because last year when he just started shooting threes out of nowhere in March, the last 17 games of the season, he made 1-3, at least 1-3 in 11 of those. He also did it a couple times in the playoffs. He did make more than 1-3 3 times. So I think if we could do exactly one, we'd probably get some good value on that. But I mean, Bam's going to shoot threes this year. Like, I play fantasy basketball. Yahoo Fantasy projects him at 15 made threes this year. I think that's very low. And I've seen other projections where he's just, probably not going to make that many. And it's like, no, they're going up this year. Now, I'm not saying he's going to do what he was doing at the rate he was doing it in, like the Olympics, for example, or in terms of how he did it in preseason, where it felt like at times he was just standing out there to get him up. Like, it's preseason and he's obviously working on some things. There's going to be games where he probably doesn't shoot that many. I think against Orlando, they're probably going to need it because this game could be very ugly and they're going to need the spacing. This could be an under spot depending on where that total ends up getting to. But yeah, I think Bam's going to probably put up consistently 2, 3, 4. There's going to be some games where he puts up even 5 threes. I don't think that'll be very often, but ultimately he's going to put them up. He has a nice form. He actually made 50% from 3 toward the end of last year. The last 17 games of the season last year was 14 of 28. And like he is going to have open threes is the key to this too, because if you're guarding Bam, you're going to live with the 3-point shot until he proves he can hit it. And in this early portion of the schedule, the books are going to be like, all right, half a three, and it's just going to be around even money. So once he starts making them, the books will adjust, and then maybe you'll start to see, either heavy juice or maybe we do get to 1.5 if he's making a good amount of them. But they're going to be above the break threes, maybe some corner threes, but they're all going to be open. And I'll take my chances on him going 1 for 3, so to speak, against the Orlando Magic.
I tried to find over 0.5 under 1.5, but nobody will give me under 1.5. Shop this at FanDuel. This is already moving. It was at 130 when we started the show. It's at 145 now. There's still a minus 115 over at DraftKings for the over 0.5. So shop around. If you're listening to this on Wednesday morning on the podcast, always shop around. You can do that using the Action Network app. Just open up the props section, and it's going to give you the best lines for everything. Make sure that you're not paying more vig than you should on Bam Adebayo over 0.5 threes. I love this play. I'm going to tell Brian on it. I think the key for me is Terry Rozier. I've thought more about Terry Rozier than I probably should ever think about Terry Rozier today, because I also have a play on the total in this game where I'm taking the over of 208.5. I think this number is way too low. I project at 216. This is a game that it's like, oh, it's 2 defensive teams. It's number 5 defense versus number 3 defense. It's going to be an under. 208.5 to me is just too low. It was 213.5 in the market for the last 2 matchups last year after the All-Star break with tougher officiating with more injuries. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm taking the over 208.5. And I think, and part of that is I am expecting Bam to shoot more threes. I am expecting them to have better spacing. I think Terry Rozier's presence is going to help generate those alongside, whatever things Tyler Hero does, which he does many things that are both good and bad. All right, Fiddle, let's go to your picks and let's start with the Cavs here. Cavs -6 at Raptors. I'm going to be honest with you. I looked at this, like, got my projections based off of power rating and was like, ooh, that's a tasty number. What game is that? Oh, it's Cavs at Raptors. Fuck no. Nope, I'm out. I ran away from this line. I applaud you for your bravery. Tell me why you're in on the Cavs -6 versus the Raptors in their home opener.
The Raptors have already ruled out RJ Barrett, Bruce Brown, and Kelly Olynyk. Remember, Kelly Olynyk said in the media day press conference that they weren't really focused on winning this year. And then the Cavaliers, on the other hand, are trying to push the pace, trying to initiate a lot of offense, and trying to be a team that really steps on the gas. Now, the general travel trip through customs and through Canada to Toronto is difficult. However, doing it for night 1 when you're already an Eastern Conference and East Coast team is less daunting than it will be throughout the regular season. So I'm not scared of the travel spot. I think this is already the Toronto Raptors planting their flag with 2 Gs for Cooper Flag. Like, this is starting early right now to be benching 3 players or be resting or calling them out, not playing them for all intents and purposes. We've seen this move from all the way from -4 at the open to 7s at some point, 6.5s coming in now. I talk about key numbers very often in my handicapping. I'm sure people have heard about that last year. If you're new this year, let's just go over the basics. 6 is the most common outcome in the NBA the last 3 years. So if I'm seeing a number that's at 6 with 6.5s and 7s on the board, or you could even apply this to the Warriors where there's a 5.5 and consensus 6s on the board. If you can beat that CLV, I will remove my opinion about what teams are playing, what players are playing, and just say that that's blind value relative to the most important key number and hook in the NBA. So if this 6 closes at 6.5, I'm going to say I walked away with a plus EV ticket and be in good shape before tip.
Okay. Do you have the rate that 6 actually, that 6 or higher covers though?
Yeah, like if you have a plus CLV ticket relative to a 6, it's also the most common push number because of how often it's priced. But if you have that positive CLV relative to that key number, it is pretty blindly profitable for the last decade.
Okay. All right. Okay. This makes me it just makes me nervous. Fonseca, what do you think about this game? Just because like I want to bet Cavs here. The game that spooked me was 2 years ago. It was OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet. I should not be scared here. It's just like the Cavs should be so much better, and there's so much hype, and I have Atkinson coach of the year, and I have division, and like all these types of things. And these are the ones that worry me, where it's like, oh yeah, you should kill that team, and then it's the other team's home opener, and it's just like, wow, Raptors beat the Cavs 107-101. That's weird. I just this for whatever reason I'm spooked by this. What do you think, Fonseca?
Yeah, and I'm somebody who's very in on this Cleveland Cavaliers team. Like we've talked about this leading up to the season. Like I'd be tempted to take the 6.5. I love what Kenny Atkinson is going to do in terms of pace and space and trying to make this offense as fast as it can be. Like Cleveland's going to play very, very fast. Like the total to me is going to be interesting. You could bet total 3-pointers made for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that's going to be interesting market to look at throughout the season because I do think they're going to shoot more of them. I do think Evan Mobley, speaking of Bam shooting more threes, I think Evan Mobley is going to shoot more threes because Kenny Atkinson had this impact, which I wrote about, on Action Network a few months ago, where Kenny Atkinson was on the Atlanta Hawks staff where Al Horford was beginning to shoot more threes, and it was gradual, and then it just jumped in one season. And he credits Kenny for helping do that. And then Brook Lopez, it was the same thing. Kenny Atkinson becomes a head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, and Brook Lopez becomes a shooter, and then eventually gets traded for D'Angelo Russell. And now all of a sudden we look at him as like a 3-and-D center. Even though he's older now and damn near toward the end at this point, but he really sort of rejuvenated and extended his career in a lot of ways. So I'm going to be tempted to take the Cavs here. I get the sort of reservations for it, but I mean Cleveland's a really good team, and I do wonder if there's going to be a learning curve in terms of how they're going to play. Like they're going to play faster than they're used to, and you're going to have to figure out usage, ball distribution, things of that nature. But I really like this Cavs team, so.
Yeah, and this is always the trick, right? And I ran this in NFL, which is everybody that has preseason positions on a team, that first matchup, they're always going to love those spots.
Yeah.
Fiddle's not doing that because Fiddle's a market reader, and he is Fiddle bought 5,000. But like Brandon Anderson was all over, not to Brandon's ROI like is a giant person next to my little midget, but Brandon on like opening week, all of our guys at Action were all over the Carolina Panthers because everybody had their futures. And so they were all over them versus the Saints. Because I've been thinking a lot about this, about how your preseason prior winds up infecting you with sentiment where you're like, oh, this team's really good. They're really good. And you're always trying to kind of get above that expectation. And that market eventually is way ahead of you. And that's or ahead of reality. And that's like, I think part of the problem. I don't think that's happening here with the Cavs. It's not like they're like the sexiest team on the planet here. Again, Raptors. Not I like Fiddle's thing of like they're not trying to win. Barrett's out, Olynyk's out, injury laden. I need to do the injury adjustment on my power rating. That probably gets us to where I might need to play it. I'm not going to, and here's why. Eastern Conference home openers. So I noticed this because I was looking at home openers and it wasn't as strong as I thought. And then I looked at conference splits. And it's like the West is really tough. So these games are all kind of a coin flip. And the East is garbage. And so if you're home, it's a huge edge. 45, 29, and 3, 61% over the last 10 seasons are home Eastern Conference openers. If you are a dog, it's 11, 5, and 1. If you're a home dog to a conference opponent, it's 10, 5, and 1, 67%. It's 16 games. So that's not like, this isn't a big sample size. 3 games go in one direction and it changes, but that's enough to give me a little bit of pause. I also think this is interesting, though, that we've got 16 games since 2014 where an Eastern Conference team was a home dog in their opener. We have 4 in the next 3 days, including that Wizards game, by the way. Pistons at Pacers, or Pacers at Pistons, Bucks at Sixers after all the injuries, Cavs at Raptors, and then Celtics at Wizards. Just thought that was kind of interesting.
Matt, I feel the exact same way that you feel about like being wary about the Raptors. For people who might want to bet the Pacers -4.5 or -5, a road at the Pistons. That's my red flag. Buyer beware of this slate. Watch the hell out. Stay away.
See, but the problem is I bet the Pistons over so many times that
so it's now your preseason priors are being confirmed.
They're my sentiment team, and I'm like, no, no touchy. All right.
Are either of you interested in the total for this game, by the way? Cavs Raptors?
Can I speak about the total of what's happened? Because it's mind-blowing.
You had me at mind-blowing. Hit me.
Yeah, me too.
This has moved 6 points in the last 36 hours towards the over. Like it was sat at 218.5 before, like I think in the last 36 hours, betting groups have started to come into the NBA space because as individual bettors, it's much easier to lay into futures and kind of look ahead spots and getting ahead of these lines when they were posted 6 weeks ago. But groups that bet and mainly move these markets want to churn their bankroll as fast as possible. So I think they're really coming into the waters, and seeing this over was insane to see all of this movement. So like, I can't play it anymore. I don't want to be contrarian to and play an under once it's moved too far without having an original ticket. Like I like to set up my middles, but think about prop angles. Like Donovan Mitchell's over 2.5 threes is -175. I hate the juice, but I like the bet. You could look for escalated in those directions. Like this is a clear over spot from a market perspective. I'm looking forward to watching and finding out why that is.
Yeah, thoughts, Fonseca, on the total?
Cavs total team over is 115.5. And I would like to say that that's going to feel low as the season progresses with Kenny Atkinson. I don't know if that's going to be too low in this first game with Kenny Atkinson. So I'm not going to bet it, but I'm curious to see, like, all right, are they going to hit 124 right off the bat, or are they just going to, like, gradually get there? Because Kenny Atkinson's teams, even when he was coaching the Nets, they're always top 10, 5 in three-point attempts. Like they're going to jack up a lot of threes, this team.
All right, Fiddle, give me the cap on Suns Clippers over 222.5.
They're healthy. They have a point guard. They have an offensive coach, and they should really start to lengthen their offensive performance this year. They're going to shoot more threes. Finally, let's hope. I know every team says it before the beginning of the season, but let's hope the Suns actually execute it. They have been executing it throughout the preseason, so I do expect it to bear its fruits in the early part of this year. We've seen the market move up 2 points today from 222 to now 224s. I still like it if you find a 223.5 or 224. I think this might close north of 225. My one concern about it is, I mean, with Kawhi, he's probably a net neutral player to totals because of how good he is on defense. But I mean, he's very efficient on offense and a mid-range maestro. My concern with this is the amount of offense that might have to be generated through Zubac for the Clippers if they don't have Kawhi. So if it's going to be a lot of hardened pick and roll with Zubac and they're calling less fouls and they're generating less looks at the line and shooting twos, then I like it less. But ultimately, I think this is another clear over spot. I think the Suns' offensive output is going to be phenomenal this season. I think we look towards Kevin Durant, 23.5 points on a player prop. That's too low in my opinion. He's can score at will without a single play being called for him and end up with 28 like no one even looked. So for so many reasons, I like it. I think Norm Powell's threes is another good angle in this game.
Okay, so to be clear, your stop point is 224.5.
Yes, because I think the close is inevitably 225, and I'd like to be at least slightly ahead of the market by like 1 point on totals.
DK is already there, but you can find 224s at Bet365 Caesars. As I'm listening to this, if you're listening in the morning and it's over 224.5, then Fiddle says it's a stay away. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna tail you on this as well. I'm going the over 224 here. I like this. I hadn't really. I don't know why. So part of my concern is like I've got this projected over, but the thing is I immediately want to drop this because like my numbers are based off of last year's figures and with a little bit of adjustments. And it's like, well, look, Kawhi's out and PG's gone, so this is blah, 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 right. The Clippers are going to go way, way, way down. But the Suns 3-point thing, I really don't know how to put in like that. That is an exponential variable here where it could really mess with these totals early. Like all these Suns totals could be off if they come out, or at least the first couple of games, if they're just bombing threes the way they were in preseason, and I think they are. So if that's my position, I need to be on the over here. So I like that quite a bit. I'm actually subbing that into our parlay. We'll come back to that. Before we do that, I will tell you real quickly, under 222 Warriors Blazers. I have this projected under off of last year's numbers, and I think the Warriors defense is going to be better. As much as I hate to admit this, I think Brandon Anderson is going to be right, and that the Warriors are going to be a top 10 defense. And if they're as good as they looked in preseason, and they have looked extremely sharp in terms of defensive rotations and personnel, the kids look like they know what they're doing. Kuminga, Moody, Pajemski, all the Trace Jackson Davis, they look like fully formed NBA players who are ready to lock in and play defense, led by Draymond. I just think they're going to be able to absolutely just cut off the water here for the Portland Trail Blazers. Blazers defense is awful. That's the counter here, but I don't think the Warriors offense is still going to be any good. I actually think, here's a good comp for you. The Chiefs have become a not amazing, but still really clutch and high leverage Patrick Mahomes and an elite defense. The Warriors might be, Steph Curry's not as good as he once was, but he's as good once as he ever was, and an elite defense around him. That might be the model for the Warriors' success this season. So I will play the under 222 Warriors Blazers. Andrew O'Connor Watts is going to be specifically on the Blazers under team total. I try not to mess with those as much as I used to because of the variance. I want more outs, right? If it's just like, hey, the Warriors shot like crap from 3 on their opening night, I can still get out of this with an under. But I'll take the under 222 Warriors Blazers combined. If you want to focus in on just the Warriors defensive angle, Blazers team total under from Watts, I think, is a really good play. Before we do the parlay, real quick, Fonseca, do you have any thoughts on my total play there, Warriors Blazers?
I don't like this Blazers team at all, so I'm probably gonna be with you on that. I also want to point out there's one more prop that I'm interested in that I don't know if I'm gonna play this, but I'm intrigued. Nets versus Hawks. You can get Cam Thomas to score 40 at plus 2,000 on DraftKings. I don't know. You can get Cam Thomas to score 40 at plus 2,000 on DraftKings.
Woo!
That game is an over spot, and you could also get ode to the listeners who are listening live. I actually just wrote the player props article for Action that'll be posted tomorrow morning, which will include Trae Young over 25.5. It's been an over spot, and if we're talking about how much your preseason priors resonate with you, it's not a bet that I had, but Trae Young was top 5, top 3 candidate across the books to be leading scorer in points per game in the NBA. So, and like most threes and most assists, and the Hawks were projected, top 5 most points in the league in those kind of markets. So illuminating to see the Hawks projected such scoring. So if you're going to look to those angles in a game, whether it's playing the other side with Cam Thomas in an escalated, those are smart angles. I agree.
All I'm saying about Cam Thomas is he did not sign a rookie extension. There was not one agreed upon. He is in a contract year. That ball is going to fuck up every single game. All right.
we started this, and when we popped on, I was like, Fonseca, what's your best bet? He's like, Bam over 0.5 threes, which I knew he was going to be on. And I was like, that's it? He's like, that's it. And then like at the end, he's like, oh, by the way, here's Cam Thomas to drop a 40 bomb. What's the number again?
Plus 2,000.
Plus 2,000.
I think it might be worth a little nibble. I may even put it on that. We gotta
run this one by Brandon. This might be a Brandon approved play. Okay. We're gonna do the parlay for the night, which I will come up with a cool name with later for this show. All right, we're gonna do Bam 1+3s. We're gonna do Suns Clippers over 222.5. And instead of taking the under on Warriors Blazers, we're gonna do Warriors -6 and get that -110 because they should stomp this Blazers team. So we're gonna do that one, and that's gonna get you plus 550 as we sit here recording this right now. You can find that in the Action Network app. We'll have a whole page on it. So that's our parlay. Bam, 1+3s. Suns Clippers over 222.5. Warriors -6. That's gonna do it for buckets. My thanks to Brian Fonseca and Michael Fiddles Picks for joining me for this first edition of Buckets Live on the season. Great start. Glad to have you guys with us. If you're listening on the podcast, leave us a 5-star review. Tell us whatever you want. Feedback is a gift, as Chad Millman always says. We'll talk to you tomorrow with more best bets. We'll be right back at you tomorrow. Thanks for listening. My thanks to David Payne, our producer, and Tito, our amazing producer, hanging out with us at youtube.com/the Action Network. We'll see you guys again tomorrow as the season really gets rolling. Until then, let's get buckets.